With me today, we've got Fazal Gupta. So he runs product for us. And then Russ also runs product and our roadmap process here at Logic.io. So all three of us worked at a company you may have heard of called Big Machines, which I founded in 2000, which kind of started the beginning of the CPQ space. But I think the space is still really interesting, and it's really ripe for a lot of changes that are happening in companies. Some of that's kind of driven by buying behavior and the recent COVID epidemic that happened. What I'll do today is just give you a little bit of background on the Logic story, kind of why we started the company. You know, why does the world need another product configurator? Is a good question. And then we'll talk about kind of our race to continue to bring this technology to market and help our customers sell more and sell faster. And so one of the things when we looked at the space about 3 years ago, we found that basically people buying both B2B and B2C products have gotten a lot pickier, is really the easiest way to think about it. And you know, buyers want like perfect fit solutions, you know, right away. They don't want to just search and then browse through a long list of things to look for. They want something that fits their needs like perfectly. And they want to be guided along the journey as they do it by somebody that may actually know more about what the service or product they're buying than they do. And lastly, probably most importantly, they want to do this with any channel, anytime. And so a lot of these transactions of companies, you know, we work with like Palo Alto Networks, Cisco, PowerSchool, you know, great businesses like that. A lot of their transactions actually start in one channel and finish in another. So you can think about a use case where somebody goes to your website, does like digital self-discovery of your products. That becomes a lead, and then that lead drops into a CPQ process, or it may drop into an e-commerce process. And that's really the important thing here is you want to be able to move these transactions across the channel as your customer wants you to do that. And the current solutions in the market really don't do that very well. And the very best companies right now that are succeeding in all of their markets really have this concept of this fluid omni-channel selling down to a science. And they have embedded product guided experience. They have real-time visibility of all the options and pricing of the products. They have a perfect fit solution that's easy to get to, typically on their website. And they have really fast and very engaging kind of experiences. And the key features that we built into our technology to be able to do this, which really makes us very different in this market. The first is really it's an attribute-based configurator. So a lot of product configurators on the market today are all part-based. And the part-based experience really dies. It really doesn't hold up in a lot of cases where customers want to find these like perfect solutions for their problems. And the heart of the solution that we built is a solving engine, which is very different than what we did with Big Machines or the way Salesforce CPQ works, for example, or the SAP products. And the important thing about the solving engine is it gives our customers amazing performance. And you might think, well, 2, 3, 4, 5-second response time is okay. But what I like to tell prospects is if you put a search into Amazon and it took 3 seconds to get you an answer, how long would you keep using Amazon? You probably wouldn't use it, right? And so what's really important in the fine points here is that you need this video game-like instantaneous experience showing up for your buyers as they go through these channel processes, whether it's e-commerce, CPQ, or discovery on your website. We also built the product to be headless, so it's composable, so you can drop it into any experience you want very easily, so you can take your configurator and syndicate it throughout your organization. That's something that the current monolithic CPQ tools don't do very well today at all. And then we really, with Logic.io, we really had a chance to take a fresh look at administration, which frankly was one of the things that we got a little bit away from us with the previous companies like Big Machines. It did get difficult to admin. It took like tons of really smart people like at Optima to install Big Machines, for example, in these projects. And so we really, this was a chance for us to really look at that and kind of start that whole process over and make it something that a Salesforce admin could drop into and become a configuration admin expert, overnight with the solution. Just some recent developments, with our company. So we did just do our Series A. We raised a significant amount of capital, almost $30 million to date for the company. We're spending the majority of that on engineering, sales and support for our customers. So we're really embedding a lot of good technology to make our customers very happy with the product. 300% year-over-year growth. So we're finding excellent product market fit for this. We're finding companies want this concept of a composable configurator they can put anywhere in their channel experiences. Our customers are very quickly going live. So Palo Alto Networks is a company we're very proud of. Went live 2 weeks ago, migrated 50,000 configurations in their install base over a weekend. Did a big bang rollout, running Logic I/O with their CPQ process in Salesforce. And then we're up to about 75 people now. Our plan is to add another 50 in the next 12 months, and we just opened a new headquarters just north of Chicago. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fazal, and he'll take you through the recent developments in the roadmap. Thanks. Here you go, Fazal.
Thanks, Chris. Can everybody hear me? It's a small room, so it should be possible. All right, so as Chris said, I'll focus on covering what we've been doing over the last 12 months. Since Chris said we've gotten a big team assembled, and we've been innovating a lot. And overall, we've delivered more than 60 plus real enhancements, not like incremental small things, but more than 60 plus enhancements. So we as a team operate in the philosophy of delivering fast and meeting the customer needs rather than giving them promises. So that is one of the key things we focus on. And based on that, over the last 9 months or so, these 60 plus enhancements really came from few key sources. So first and foremost, I would want to thank all our customers who are still there. Some of them are in the audience today. They have been a big driver for us to deliver practical innovations, right? So important thing is not to deliver something which seems cool, but something which is highly effective. So that makes a big portion of the enhancements we focus on. Some of the things which we've really done, we probably wouldn't have done if customers didn't ask for it, is simple things like audit history. If you're looking at your who made what changes, what are the history of the changes, when you are a big enterprise, you care about those kinds of security controls, right? And we take those things seriously. Or things around providing your end users the right kind of help collateral, and you can design their experience as flexibly as possible. The other thing which we focus a lot on, we observe and work very closely with our end users and our admins to see what are the areas they are struggling with. And that really fuels the area of our delightful experiences, what kind of enhancements we do in that area. So one of the enhancements we came out this year with was the layout editor, which is much more effective and one of the only keyboard-only editors, I would say, which is fully keyboard effective for really power users to be able to build layouts very quickly in the market. So we did that working with our customers, collaborating with them. We did this kind of same thing when we looked at the visualization, 3D visualization kind of solutions when we work with them. How do we make sure that it is not a higher cost of ownership for our customers? So we make standard solutions for that rather than making customers and folks like Optima apply all the creativity to solve those problems. We actually take that on and provide a standard upgrade safe kind of way to embed those experiences. Innovation goes to our heart. It's actually part of our cultural value. We focus a lot on it. As Chris said, engineering actually is our biggest area of investment. And the reason we are able to do that is because we know innovation is the way we can take the market to the next level. So when we think about next-gen CPQ, it won't be just selling in a different way. It actually has to be a product in a different way. So we focus on those areas and we look at same problems which we have been solving, and CPQ world, as Chris and Godard started it about 20 years ago. The problems have still remained similar, but the solutions and the technologies have changed a lot. So we focus on the same problems, but we take a more unique take on it. I'll cover about repeatable set display and some of the areas we have done. But really the focus over the last 9 months was around connected enterprise. So how do we think about operating in an enterprise IT ecosystem where all the data will not exist in Logic, of course. All the data will not even exist in Salesforce is the reality. So how do you think about their broader complex architecture where the data is going to be and provide customers the freedom to do what they need to do easily? And last but not the least, we always look to take the space to the next level. We want to do our part of thought leadership and work with our customers on that area. So we keep working on expanding our capabilities to address newer and newer use cases. We'll talk about Product Picker in a bit, but we work very closely with our partners at Salesforce to see any new product they're launching. How do we work closely with them to make sure that our solution complements what they are building and gives our customers the best possible solution. And some of the customers, as Chris said, Cisco and others, they've really benefited from this kind of a flow. And the other thing which we have also done is really provide them more and more ability to get data, again, from different sources as well as from Salesforce in a more effective manner. So moving on, one of the areas which I wanted to highlight, which we kind of released a few months ago, was repeatable sets display. And by itself, this feature is kind of esoteric to understand, so I'll boil it down to what is the main impact? What do we focus on? So when you think about most of the configurations, whether it's like a sub-assembly configuration or you have a nested solutions, nested components in a machine, or nested servers in a chassis, that kind of a flow. Doing things like data structure of sets or arrays in our application is a very effective way to do that. But one of the limiting things which we have seen with other solutions, including Oracle CPQ or Big Machines or even Salesforce, is giving customers the freedom and flexibility to design an experience for a fairly complex component to be embedded in a bigger configuration. Repeatable sets display does that. It gives you full freedom of leveraging the power of sets, which can repeat the same information multiple times, but arrange the experience in a way that the users don't even have to realize that they are operating in something which is repeatable or a complex data structure. We did that work. It has been very effective, very heavily used by some of our customers, and it has really helped them achieve configuration, finishing a configuration, even a complex one, in 50 to 70% less time than they could before. Another one, which we, from the day one, we started logic. We knew that unlike most CPQ systems which think about how to make the sale, we think about how do you actually complete an order. So when you capture a configuration, you're not just doing it for fun. You're doing it to actually sell business, right? So when you're capturing items, you are kind of dealing with two key things. One is there are different types of products people are selling. Some information might be for the sales team. Some of that might be for manufacturing. You might be selling hardware, software, and services together, right? Or you might be selling things in subscription or one-time kind of motions, and all of that being combined. So having that distinction as a first-class object or a first-class construct in an application is very important. So we built that kind of in our bill of material from day one, and we provided a lot more controls in that area. So if you are trying to sell hardware, software, services together, you're selling subscriptions and one-time items together, how do you make sure that they are segmented out for the user to easily verify them, to be able to view them, see their totals, see all their values, and have rules running on each one of them in their own way? That is the capability which we enhanced and released also this year. And last but not the least, I do want to talk about Product Picker. So this is a feature which we have been keeping in beta for a month or so. It's going to be GA'd actually in this month. So we are going to be announcing it as generally available. And we are very excited about it. And part of it is, if you think about the world of CPQ, because obviously I live in that world, so I think the entire world is that. But many of you do too, so hopefully you guys enjoy this nerd joke. But essentially, if you think about CPQ, there have been kind of two schools of thought. If you think about Salesforce, it has been really effective in product selection kind of a use cases. And if you think about Oracle CPQ, that has been very effective in that attribute-based guided selling kind of experiences. And when we looked at it, when Chris and I started the company with others, one of the things we realized is, why do we have technology force or dictate customers what they are supposed to do, rather than think about it the other way around? Customers don't make that distinction. They'd look at, well, I'm sometimes doing some guided selling, and then I have to select a bunch of products. Why do I have to make that separation? Product Picker is basically the bridge to avoid or eliminate that separation completely. So now if you are using logic, you want to have product selection, or you want to be able to do more guided selling, or the mix of two, you will be able to do that very effectively, while having all the power of all the rules we support, all the data structures we support, so you can build a fairly nested, complex configuration and not even think about the complexity given our architecture. So there will be a lot of that excitement about this feature. We'll talk about it. But to kind of give you guys a sneak peek, since you guys made it to a 9 a.m. meeting, we thought we'll give you guys a demo as well. So Russ, I'll call on Russ to do the demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Fazal. Wait for my mic. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay, cool. Awesome.
So, Kevin, you could pop me over to the demo. So yeah, we'll take you through like a little demo of Product Picker. And I'll actually show you it working inside the sets as Fazal talked about. So I'm actually in a Salesforce CPQ environment. I'm gonna go ahead and add some products as a user. And I'm gonna go ahead and select this cloud workload configurator, which sounds pretty complex. And so if you've seen a lot of our demos, if you're on the booth, like one of the demos you'll see is a high-tech demo. And inside of this demo, we actually added this tab over here called Compute as a Service. And the idea is I'm a user and I'm actually going to configure a server with all of you in like 3 minutes. It's going to be awesome. The first thing we're going to do is actually select the number of blades that are going to be in the server, the chassis that will determine the number of blades. And so what you're actually seeing on the screen, these grids, they're actually product pickers. And so there's a one-to-one relationship between the products that I select on screen and actually what's get added to the cart. So as I made that selection, not only did I start to build out that bill of material, but underneath, I can actually see the individual blades that operate like that sub-assembly that Fazal was talking about. And so inside of each one of these kind of verticalized tabs, I can have a completely separate configuration that drives how my bill of material is being built out on the right. And what's cool about these is they're all interconnected from a rules perspective. So for example, if I choose this power supply here, and then I decide to update the number of blades and go to something crazy like 12, it's actually starting to aggregate details about the individual subassemblies to tell me as a user with the red dot here that I actually need to up my power supply in order to accommodate those blades. And then there's different, we're a rules company, so as I go through here and add different memory, again, it's starting to aggregate and go through the system and say, hey, if you're going to start to change to 64 megabit RAM, might make sense to do that across all the blades. So just very quickly wanted to kind of show, product pickers and product pickers inside of sets. Now I'm ready for the concert. Okay. And I don't want to lose this either. So I'm new to Logic 7 weeks, but one of the big things about the company overall, enterprise grade is kind of one of the investment areas, but just as a secret sauce, like Logic is truly built on a next generation technology. It's incredibly fast. Our users do not wait for response times. And so I thought about changing this investment area to just the Logic standard. Anything we build in a way that's flexible, that's scalable, that's high performant. Not just for the enterprise, but really for all organizations that need to configure products. Consumerizing the user experience. Chris talked a lot about this, and the joke I always make is you used to be able to get away with being like, oh, it's a B2B app, meaning like the UI does not have to be good, right? The experience doesn't have to be great. In the era of TikTok and Instagram, like I know I don't have the patience anymore, and so when we want to consumerize, it's not just the buying experience, it's also the admin. It's really all the users of the platform. They expect kind of this world-class Amazon type experience. And we weren't going to get out of the AI event of the year without talking about AI. So, but it's not just AI, it's automation. So really the goal is, there's a lot of really cool technologies out there, right? There's ChatGPT, generative AI, there's other predictive models. But there's also just plain old like automation and like how do we make building the product, building configurations, making it easy to use. And so as we go through the different components, we'll talk to you some of the ways we're using AI and just plain old automation. So from an enterprise grade or a Logic standard perspective, really one of the big items for us, probably in the next 3 to 4 months, is something we're calling solution configuration. And so for folks that have used our product, you can create what we call blueprints, which is kind of the equivalent of like a model and like an ERP. And the idea is you have a lot of these blueprints, and as a user comes in, they can select which product they want to configure. Well, a lot of our customers want to use those blueprints inside of each other, right? And so they've got complex networks or systems where there's dependencies between the blueprints. And so what solution configuration is going to allow us to do is basically combine blueprints so that if you want to have a complex system solution, you'll actually be able to do that and deliver that inside of Logic. We're also going to add a lot more enhancements for migration management. So today we've got some really great tools to let you import and export. You can do some complex user-based experiences for migration. But we've got a lot of great feedbacks. We've got a great customer advisory board. And so there's a couple enhancements around like change sets and being able to do destructive edits that we're going to work on to put into the system. Logic Trust, so you've probably heard Salesforce Trust. Logic Trust, the same idea. We want to make it very transparent. If you go to logic.io, be able to see, what our servers are doing, basically having observability into your orgs. We do a really good job of that today. We just want to make sure that customers can actually see that very transparently. And then finally, probably last one I'll talk to you on this slide is just Revenue Cloud integration. So we have a very close relationship with the Revenue Cloud team. I was actually part of the Revenue Cloud product management team for 7.5 years. So as they release new products, as they release things on the roadmap, we work very closely with them to make sure anything that we do works very tightly and closely with Salesforce. And so for consumerizing user experiences, I took a lot of liberty with this slide because you could argue there's some things that aren't quite user experiences, like cloning rules. But really the idea here is like, what are we doing to make, if I'm a user in the system, how do we make that consumerized? How do we make it awesome? And so one of the feedback items that we got was the ability to save invalid configurations. And so I've never configured a civilian energy turbine, but I'm told it takes a really long time. And so if you're doing that and you want to take a break and go make a coffee, take the kids to school, the ability to save a configuration that's invalid and come back to it later is something that customers have asked us for, and we think it's a good idea. We continue to add visualization components. So we work really well today with CDS, with 3Kit. There's another company out there called K-Bridge that we're building a visualization component for. So that really kind of just, we're very bought into the idea of composable commerce. So if you've got existing services, you've got existing components, we're going to make it really easy for us to integrate and let you use those existing tools. And then finally, like air display options. So this is another great one that came from customers that makes a ton of sense. Using that civilian energy turbine example, right? There's probably a lot of tabs, there's a lot of things. I'm sure there's a power cord in there somewhere. You want to be able to be directed to not only just where the errors are, but potentially by groups. So if you've got a huge list of errors, being able to kind of quickly navigate and drive to those areas is something that we think is a really good idea, and we're going to build into the app. Now, it's a good thing we got Fazal off stage, because if we let him talk about AI, I don't think we'd have enough time. So they let me do it. But in terms of what we're doing with AI, we're actually going to show you a demo in a second. But one of the things that we decided to do right away is using that generative AI technology to actually help with some of the scripting in our tool. And so I'll let Fazal talk a little bit. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but we've really taken a language model and we've made it understand logic and how logic works, our terminology, and we've actually embedded it inside of our admin experience. And so what you're going to see here in a little bit is the ability to actually create a script inside of logic using AI to help you generate that script very quickly. Smart configuration, Fazal calls this cognitive overload. I like that term. Again, civilian energy turbines, if you hired me, I would have no idea what I'm doing. So it would be really nice for the application to perhaps suggest or complete things for me that really shouldn't be consuming a lot of my human brain. And so the ability to put a user in a situation and make recommendations, complete configurations based on existing data that you have in the system is an area that we think is going to be a very strong feature set for us. Introspect and suggest rule improvements. The way to really think about this is if you've ever configured a system, especially a complex one, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of data. It can be very easy to take what you have in an old system and try to re-implement it. And so the idea here is, we can actually start to analyze what you're trying to do from a rules perspective, look at what the admin is doing, and then start to suggest ways to improve it or make it better. And this could be just in terms of maintenance, like lower the amount of rules. It could be in terms of performance. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And so it's really just being able to take your data and your org and suggest ways to think about how to do it better. And then lastly, I'll just add Logic Help Assistant. So the idea there is generative AI. I mean, I love ChatGPT, it's awesome. But being able to surface bots and be able to ask questions in plain language, not just on a help website, but potentially in-app, right? You're trying to do something, you don't quite know how to do it, just like with the script. I just want to ask a simple question, like, how do I create this table? Like, here's what I'm trying to do, and be able to have that rule and that information or that data referenced directly within the app. So I didn't go through all the bullets. We got a very, very strong roadmap. I'm going to let Fazal actually show you a little beta of the actual AI product.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so again, thanks for showing up for the early morning session. So this is something which we actually decided to show for the first time here. We haven't shown this demo to even Logic internal people yet. So hopefully it will go well. We'll see. All right, the first sign is good. We'll see how the rest of the demo goes. So as Russ said, there's been a lot of focus. When we looked at AI, obviously, in 6-7 months ago, AI took world by storm, and there have been a lot of theories. So we won't get into ethical debates today, but I will start with baseline that we did not want to just do another, oh yeah, we got AI, and start claiming that word 5 times in a sentence. We actually wanted to take a step back and think, where are we going to actually make an impact? So that's where we started looking. It's like, guys, where is the impact, the vector of productivity and cognitive overload is the term which I use. Where can we actually help our users? At the same time, how mature is this technology? Do we just throw it out in the wild and hope for the best? We don't operate that way. We don't operate with our customers' data that way. So we wanted to be a lot more sure and thoughtful in the way we released our first feature. So the feature which I'm going to show you guys now is actually our beta feature we are starting with. We are going to do a more invite-only kind of program with our customers to kind of work with them. And few things we have taken care of even before I show the features, if anybody has any questions. So how do we make sure we really do not share much or any data with language models is important. How do we make sure none of that data is ever going to go out of our control plane? Those two things are very important. So we take that very seriously. And that's why we focused on the IP which Logic owns is what we are using for a lot of that AI training and tuning at the moment. So that's important to keep in mind. So I'll start. As Russ said, there are a couple of flows I'll show you and see. Hopefully my typing supports me and I'll be able to show you a good prompt. Because the reality with AI, and as you start working with AI, is it's not about actually how technical you are, but how good you are in English. And English is my second language, so we'll see how this goes. So as you'll see, for the folks who have been using our software or application before, they probably are familiar. We do different types of rules. 80 to 90% of your rules are simple point and click. And then if you need to write more advanced, sophisticated calculations, we support that as well. So this is that calculation editor for writing those more sophisticated rules. And once we enable this feature on your environments and once we make it generally available, you'll start to see something called a script assistant. So not the most inventive term, but that's not where we focused our innovation. We basically started by focusing on the functionality. So if I was here, now if I'm a new user, I don't know Logic. I may not know all the scripting constructs what Logic supports. I know it sounds like JavaScript, but I don't know what it looks like. So I'm just going to try and ask some question here. So I'll be like, well, add a product for the value of shape of data set to the BOM. So if you look at this prompt, by default, this prompt is not going to make much sense. You could try this in ChatGPT if you wanted to and see what results you get. I'm actually interested what you will see there. But so this is a very key part of this. Instead of just taking the power of generative AI and trying to scatter it on the wall and hope for the best, we actually took what large language models are really good at, which is predicting the next character. That's what they really do well. Now, if you take that data set or take that kind of a model and get it to learn what we do in Logic, we can give customers this power that you can type something which seems completely different, like you're trying to add a product to the BOM. What does that even mean? We know what it means in Logic. We know our customers understand when they start operating in Logic what they are trying to do. They may not know what the value or that actual field was. So you didn't need to type that. It didn't even need to say something like the product list object. It just took that data set and created an actual code, which I could actually insert in the editor and this is valid code. So this is first power, and we are going to make this feature a lot more powerful even with comments. So if some of you who are technical or use something like GitHub Copilot, it's going to operate in very similar ways in that sense too. But the reason we started with the assistant is for the second key feature, which is make it conversational. So sometimes you can't just write a paragraph just to complete your thought, right? You wrote this line, you saw a script come out. Now you're like, well, I want to change the quantity to 2 for the shape. We'll see how it works, because sometimes it doesn't work. But that's the reason this is in beta. But as you can see, the quantity value got it changed. And now if I take something which is a little bit more advanced, which is what is so special about logic, because this is an object, which is one aspect. But if I wanted to go ahead and say, well, I also wanted to look up some data from a table, I don't know how to do that. So what would be the best way for me to do it? So that is something which also we have trained this model on. So if I was to say query, sorry, I had to type and I couldn't speak in that period. So, but if I wrote something like query, right now you see this is not something which you will see in JavaScript. This lookup function is something which logic has. It works really well to query a table. A new user may never know what this is, but they know what they're trying to do. That's why I said this is like reckoning of the generalist is a term which is being used a lot right now, because what AI is really doing is it's actually making it much easier for someone like Vanessa, I'm going to pick on my head of sales, to be able to write this kind of a script. Otherwise, this will be really difficult for her, right? So that's the idea. Now, this is going to be available in any of the areas where you're writing advanced rules when we start releasing this feature. So this was in the product area. Because it knows what area you are in, what context you are in, it's able to actually operate and return that kind of a value. If I was to take a slightly different case and I was to say, I want to do more of a determination action. So if I was to take that and I'm selecting a field and I want to do again, I want to choose the advanced function to write this determination action. Again, what I did before, I can open up the script assistant and I'll say summarize or create a string for all the CPU values. So if you see, I actually didn't know what field names we existed. The system is able to figure out, this is where generative AI or AI is generally good. It can introspect. It can see what fields you actually have. How do we do it in a secure manner is where our secret sauce is, right? So we know how to use a powerful tool in our best advantage. But it was able to generate that kind of a string. And I can say, add a new line between each value. Start with first. So the reason I typed something like this, again, if you look at it, this is not obvious. Like start with higher value doesn't mean anything. Those are field names which actually said it's a 64 core CPU or 32 core CPU. I actually didn't say that, right? So that's the power. It's actually enough, effective enough and smart enough to actually be able to figure out what field name you're saying. And then you could just say, add a nice message. So trust me, my developers were already looking to add a really funny message, so I had to stop them. So we made it a little bit more presentable. But as you can imagine, this is the other part we have taken care of. We do not want AI to cause any kind of trouble in bad messages. So this was a quick demo. Hopefully you guys liked it. But there is a lot on the AI front. Obviously, I'm an AI fanboy, as Russ said. We are not going to build TikTok, but we will do important stuff with AI. So thank you.
Fazal. That's everything we had this morning. We got a few more minutes if you guys want to ask questions, but thanks for joining and hopefully see you all at Dreamforce. Thanks. Thanks.